I can't wait for you to watch this. Hey there, welcome to Let's Just Go podcast. I'm Kayla, and this week Chris is not joining me because he is currently having the time of his life in Mexico. I actually wasn't invited. I think it's pretty rude, but that's fine. This week, I'm going to talk to you all about Seattle. For those of you who don't know, I am actually from what we call the Puget Sound area of Washington that includes Seattle, Tacoma, and Olympia. Um, I lived here for most of my childhood. I've since moved away. I'm currently living here while I wait for my house in Texas to sell before relocating to Philadelphia. And I've really I feel like I take the Pacific Northwest for granted almost until I'm here. And then I'm like, oh my God, actually, this place is so great. Oh, wow. Like, I can't believe how wonderful it is. And Chris has never been to Seattle, so he doesn't know anything. That being said, Seattle is a great place. You're surrounded by water, you've got mountains to more than one side of you. If you've ever been to San Francisco and like walked around, it's pretty similar to that in that, like, again, you're like on the water, steep incline. Seattle itself is, I want to say probably like 10 miles from the airport. So SeaTac Airport. And you can actually get there via light rail. You walk out of the airport through the parking garage, you get on the light rail, and it'll take you actually like north of Seattle. It doesn't go very far south, but it'll get you into downtown and then through downtown up to like the university area where University of Washington is. So you don't really need to have a car while you're in Seattle unless you want to go to like Mount Rainier or you want to do some hiking or some sightseeing. A lot of people really love to go to Forks because that's where Twilight takes place. So there are a lot of like day trip options. If you're going to come to Seattle and you want to do a day trip, I'd say rent a car for the day just because getting around downtown Seattle in a vehicle is honestly a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the ass. It's super expensive in terms of parking. And there are actually like roads that are strictly public transit. Like you cannot drive on them unless you are a bus. You're going to fly into SeaTac. You're going to take the light rail into downtown. There's a ton of great options to stay downtown. And then if you're looking for things to do in Seattle, you've got Pike Place Market. I feel like Pike Place Market and the Space Needle are the two like top iconic places that like people think of when they think of Seattle. So Pike Place, it's Pike Place, not Pike's Place, first of all. So Nordstrom is also from Seattle. And the flagship store is downtown Seattle. So Pike Place is a indoor outdoor market. It really depends on like the time of year as to whether or not it goes outside. Um the I say it's inside outside because it sort of feels like you're just in a garage almost. Like there's walls on most sides of you and then it's like just like open to the elements. So like if it's raining, you're not going to get rained on. But also if it's cold outside, it's going to be cold in the market. But there are tons of things to eat, shops to buy things from. I've gotten a lot of really great like pictures of Seattle from Pike Place. There's a really great spot to get mini donuts. I mean, I could go on and on. There's a lot of really fun things around Pike Place. It's really great to just like wander around. It is also multiple stories, so it goes like there's ramps that go down and down and down. I think a lot of people think that it's just the top layer where the throwing fish people are, which is also a fun thing that I think is also iconic to Seattle. So that's Pike Place. Right next to Pike Place is Post Alley, which is where the gum wall is. The Space Needle is actually like on the other side of downtown. So you can walk from Pike Place to the Space Needle, but you can actually take the monorail from pretty close to Pike Place to put you right underneath the Space Needle. It's called Seattle Center, where the Space Needle is. That's also where Mopop is, which is the Museum of Pop Culture. There's a Chihuly Glass Museum there. It's also where this Pacific Science Center is, which if you've ever been to a science museum, it's a lot of fun. I grew up going there. I think it's a great time. There's like a butterfly garden that you can go walk around in and like see butterflies. There's also tons of great breweries in the Seattle area and just like greater Washington area. Also, if you like hard cider, there are so many good places to get hard cider. My personal favorite is Seattle Cider Co., which also has a brewery, and their tasting room is actually south of downtown, kind of near the arenas where the Mariners and the Seahawks play. It's located near there. It's CenturyLink Field, and it's T-Mobile Park. It's also where the Sounders play. Lots of good cider, lots of good beer. If you're really into wine, quick day trip up to Woodinville. That's where Chateau Ste. Michelle is. If you are a fan of Riesling, you've probably had Chateau Ste. Michelle. That's what they're known for. It's a beautiful property. You can do a free tour. The last time I went there, I accidentally got an employee discount on my wine, which was really cheap, and that was fun. Woodinville also has a really great whiskey distillery. There's a lot of really great stuff to do around Seattle is my point. There's also pine trees that are literally hundreds of feet tall, which can be kind of intimidating, but also absolutely beautiful. You've got Mount Rainier that you can see from most places in the Puget Sound, which if you've never seen snow before, I know some people live places where they've never been around snow. You can go up to Mount Rainier pretty much any time of the year and touch snow. It might be really ugly. It might be a small pile, but like it does exist. Um, this year is the first year that Mount Rainier is doing a reservation based system. So if Mount Rainier is on your list of things to do when you are in the Pacific Northwest, make sure that you make a reservation. The most recent time that I looked at reservations, they were already booked up for like a couple weeks out. And I'm sure that as we get into the summer, it's going to just be harder to get a reservation. That being said, you can, I think before 7 or 8 a.m., you can go without a reservation. It's just that if you want to go into like normal people hours, it's going to require the reservation. You can also very easily go down to Portland for a quick like day trip. It's about 3 hours each way. So I would spend the night in Portland and then turn around and come back, or even like fly into one and out of the other. But it's too far for me for a day trip. My grandparents live just outside of Portland, and I don't think I've ever had a trip down and back in the same day because it's a lot of driving. But then same thing for Vancouver, BC. You can very easily go up to Vancouver and come back. Again, probably not same day, especially if the border has a long wait. But you fly into one, you fly out of the other. You can do some cruising. There's a lot of great Alaskan cruises, or even like the West Coast down to Mexico and back out of Seattle and out of Vancouver. You can also take the Victoria Clipper. You can take a boat out of Seattle and it'll take you to Victoria, BC for the day. I've never done it. I've heard it's a lot of fun. I might actually try to do it sometime soon. And then the last like little day trip type of thing is actually going to the San Juan Islands. So those are going to be almost to Canada, not quite though. When you look at a map of Washington, there's sort of like a chunk taken out of the top left corner, and that's where the San Juans are. They're just like sprinkled in where all that water is, and then the water that comes down like into Washington, that's the Puget Sound. So again, like I said at the beginning, Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, that's like the Puget Sound area. Those are the major cities. They're all great for different reasons. I am from Tacoma. Ted Bundy is from Tacoma. Gary Ridgway is also not from Tacoma, but he's from right around here. So if you're into serial killers, then go south of Seattle. Olympia is the capital. It's roughly a half an hour from where my mom lives. Yeah, it's just there's a lot to see and do here. If you're gonna come, I would suggest July, August timeframe. The weather will be beautiful. Your odds of rain are pretty low. The skies will be blue. There will still, depending on what time of the summer, there will still likely be enough snow on the mountain to make you go, "Ooh, ah, wow, it's so pretty." If you get into like September, then it starts looking really sad and you're like, "Oh, global warming is real." But there's a lot to see and do. It's all really close. If you want to go anywhere outside of the Pacific Northwest, you're going to be driving for a really fucking long time. But if you want to just go between the major cities, it's pretty easy. Traffic can be bad. I would suggest taking the Amtrak. You can take it from Seattle to Tacoma to Olympia to Portland to Vancouver. Like it goes the whole span, and makes a couple of stops here and there. And then you don't need to have a car, and it'll drop you off right in downtown Seattle. It'll drop you off right in downtown Portland. It'll drop you off, I think, in downtown Vancouver. I've never taken it to Vancouver, but there's so much. I could go on and on about things to do in Portland and things to do in Vancouver, but those could honestly just be separate episodes. Definitely come visit the Pacific Northwest. Spend some time in Seattle. Tell us how you like it. If you've been before, tell us what you did and didn't like, when your next trip is, what foods you ate. That's another thing about Seattle. Some of the best food I've ever had in my entire life. Um, that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day, and let's just go.